Welcome back. You're now watching the political segment on The Weekend Show. My name is Andy Madaki. On the 13th of June, the 10th National Assembly was officially inaugurated. Prior to the 10th National Assembly being inaugurated, we had several concerns and conversations about the leadership of the National Assembly. In the past, some of the previous assemblies have been referred to as rubber stamp assembly. However, within the last 8 years, we've had a record number of bills signed into law by the president. And even with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu just getting into power, we have seen him assent to some of the laws legislated by the last assembly. However, how important is it for us to have a free and fair legislature? How important is it for an independent legislature? This and more we will be talking about on the political segment. And joining us we have
Senator Suraju Bashir, who's a former Senate spokesperson. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
And we have Honorable Olamichu Alawakala, who is a member of Bomosho North, South, and Ore Federal Constituency. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
We'll start with you, sir. We now have the leadership of the National Assembly, where prior to their election, there were questions about inclusions and having a regional balance with the leadership, especially seeing how we had a Muslim presidential race from the APC. What's your overview of the new election of the leadership of the National Assembly?
I think as far as I'm concerned, from what transpired both at the chambers of the Senate and the House of Rep, every person that has aspiration has opportunity to ventilate the aspiration. You can see at the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, who is actually the preferred candidate of our party, and had the opportunity of contesting, and of course Senator Yari, also from our party, also contested. And at the floor of the House of Representatives, I think 3 or so other candidates also contested against Honorable Tajuddin Abbas. So nobody forced anybody not to contest. It's part of democratic process. But then we must also be able to separate hypocrisy from real situation. When you talk about Muslim tickets, it will interest you that my former colleague at the 9th Assembly, Senator Elisha Abu, who nominated, Senator Abdulaziz Yari, was one of those senators that was crying wolves and said that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu ought not to pick Senator Kashim Shettima as the presidential candidate on the ground of Muslim ticket. Then, having now a match, Senator President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Kashim Shettima, does he lie in the mouth of the same person to be the one to nominate Senator Yari? What I want to those people with Nigerians is that we should not allow people to use their own personal preferences, their own personal agenda to seek to divide us as Nigerian people. Our people that were challenged in many ways. Our people are looking towards a leadership that takes care of economy, that takes care of education of their children, and that ensure a future that befitting for our people. So we should not allow divisive elements to actually create that division. A poor man in the street of Enugu is a poor man in the street of Osogbo. And as much as a Muslim will also feel the pang of hunger, a Christian will also feel the pang of hunger. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, the leadership of the 10th Assembly are people who have track record from what you have seen. At the Senate, you have Senator Godswill Akpabio, who had been a 2-term governor, a former minority leader, and of course a minister. Then now coming, so he has been able to traverse between the executive and legislative arm. And of course, Senator Barau Jubril also have the same kind of experience from the states to the national level. Tajuddin Abbas has perhaps the highest number of bills in the 9th Assembly. Benjamin Kalu was my colleague, counterpart at the House of Rep when I was a spokesperson of the Senate. So we have people who have track record who could be able to do so. But I don't think Nigerians should allow anybody to drink them by certain physiology, being a rubber stamp Senate, rubber stamp Assembly. Those are just for people who don't even know the workings of National Assembly. A political party is a group of people that come together, have a program, an agenda they want to put in place. If that same political party is controlling the executive and legislative arm. So you expect them to come and be sparing, in public. It doesn't work that way. Even in the United States Congress, where the majority today is by the Republican Party, did you not see them agreeing, to lifting the debt ceiling? Because those are things that are crucial to the progress of the society and ensuring that the society, works. So for some of us who were in the 9th Senate and of course the 9th Assembly, if making laws that impact on the life of the people, making fundamental constitutional amendment, and making scores of law that have been assented to amount to rubber stamp, then we just take it as part of sacrifice you make. But most people don't even understand the workings of National Assembly, who have not even had the workings of how even local councils operate. They just make comment about the workings of institutions as National Assembly. We have had occasions to turn down some of the requests made by the executive in the 9th Assembly. The $800 million dollar loan was not considered by the Senate. And of course, the debt promissory note in lieu of a judgment debt was also turned down. Then some key appointments, even from members of our party, like that of Loretta Onoche for INEC commissioner, was also turned down.
True.
But those who believe that this society must work on the basis of friction, on the basis of antagonism, they are quick to label anybody with whatever they want to label. So I think that's my take on it.
Okay, Honorable. So as the 10th National Assembly takes office, what are the key expectations from them, the legislative body?
The key expectations are quality representation. First and foremost, before I move forward, I first of all want to commiserate with you on the death of your boss, because I'm close to the son, so I commiserate with you on that.
Thank you.
Secondly, the expectations as we go along is key representation. As he has said a lot, the symbiotic relationship between the legislation and the executive is what is key in making anything go on. As you can see, our number one in the assembly, which is Tajuddin Abbas, he knows what he's doing because see the last assembly, he had the highest bills passed. That shows you that he's a seasoned legislator that knows what he's doing. And so we expect that in this next season, as you can see, the executive has kicked off very well, assenting to many bills that are from the last. So we expect that in this assembly, Nigerians should expect a lot of representation, a lot of good representation for them, a lot of bills that will be passed to like see the student loan bill, see other loan bills that have already been passed. I want to expect more of that in this coming because we have a very good leader, and the foremost thing in most things is your leadership. Once your leadership is certain and your leadership is steadfast, you should expect more for them. So I expect Nigerians to expect more from us in this coming assembly.
So we saw the signing of the age reduction bill, which we popularly call the Not Too Young to Run bill, where some of us were very active, and we must commend the 9th Assembly because it was a partnership, and we needed a lot of advocacy for the National Assembly to pass it before it even got to the President. And so we have a couple of younger faces, especially in the House of Reps, which I find extremely and absolutely commendable. However, in your own case, what is your agenda for the next 4 years, and how does that also work relating to the impact on youth who are highly displaced when it comes to employment at the moment and suffering from poverty as a result of the economic downturn?
Like he said, most people do not really know the workings of all these things, legislation and executive. My agenda basically is based on women and children, and how it can impact, how I can make bills that can impact their lives in the society. Yes, I'm a young man, I'm a youth, but there's little I can do in trying to make executive decisions. I cannot try and part, but because I have an agenda, and my agenda is really focused on women and children. And the youth, I've had several programs for the youth when I was a local government chairman, when I was an executive, because I was once a local government chairman. I had empowerment programs. I had programs which I did to give them a soft landing in the society. I had a program to take them off the streets for a lending program I did for the youth. That it had an age demographics on where you can lend to be able to make you move forward in your whatever business you are into. I had that for the youth, but now I want to be more focused on the children and women, because in my community I find out that most women have a lot of problems, especially when they want to give birth and when they want to move. When I was a local government chairman, women come to my office and they need as little as 500 naira just to leave the hospital. So when I saw that, that's what made me okay. When I get as a legislator, I want to make bills that make sure that every woman that gives birth at anywhere in Nigeria should be able to give birth, have the necessary things she needs to leave the hospital, because we see a high rate of mortality. Second thing I want to focus on is children. Why children? Because we have a lot of children on the street, and there's a bill that has been passed a long time ago that every children must be in school, but the bill is not being people are not pushing the bill properly. A lot of children are still on the streets, and I want to know why are they on the street. We want to be able to take them off the street. So that's why I have those two agendas basically. A lot of people are on the agenda of youth. I believe what we do as a person, as youth, what we do in the parliament, what we do as elected youth, will be as an example to other youths, to be able to learn from what we do. If all of us as youth focus on me, we have like over 42 under 40s in the House of Assembly now. If the 42 of us are only focused on youth, then who is going to focus on the rest? I believe our actions, what we do as parliamentarians, what we do as both in the state and the federal level, will be as examples to other youths to learn from what we do, so that they can also be involved in politics, also be involved in governance.
Okay. Senator, back to the 10th National Assembly. I would like to know, how do you envision the 10th National Assembly addressing pressing issues this time around for the next 4 years, from security to economic development to social welfare and all of that? How do you envision them addressing these issues?
Yeah, I think that's why we need to get it right, that there's need for synergy between the executive and the legislative arm to be able to do so. And the framers of our constitution, they have done it in such a way that you cannot have each of the two arm of government to work, in horses. They have to work, together. For instance, talking about security, one of the steps that were taken in the last assembly, of course, which did not get to fruition, I know that I personally sponsored a bill on having a state police, and also a bill on the centralization of the Nigerian police structure, assuming the state police does not work. The way I think the idea of a security needs also a legislative amendment, and I believe that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is somebody who is a genuine federalist, and of course will also want to key into getting the legislative arm to cooperate with him to come up with legislation that would decentralize the security architecture that we have in Nigeria. It will interest you that at top of the Nigerian policing system is an office and a man, that's the Inspector General of Police. The zonal AIGs don't really have any much to do, because they don't have their budget. They are not operationally autonomous, and of course the commissioners of police are 37 of them. They get instruction for that same one man. So when you discover that you have a country that is large in terms of population, in terms of territory, so definitely there's much to say for either having outright state policing or decentralizing the Nigerian police structure along a zonal line by which each of the zones of the Nigerian police will have budgetary and operational autonomy. With this, you'll be able to ensure more efficiency in terms of addressing problem of security. Most of the time, we get the military to get involved in civil policing, which is not actually their job. Then there are also areas in terms of improving the personnel, in terms of training, in terms of technology being used to be able to drive issue of security. And of course, Section 14 of the Nigerian Constitution says that security and welfare of the people is the paramount purpose of government. Now talking about welfare of the people, some of the challenges that have been militating issues around welfare of people, they are being dismantled by the present administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And two major subsidies are already taken off. The one has to do with subsidy in the petroleum sector, a situation whereby you use close to 5 trillion on an annual basis for petroleum subsidy, when the total capital expenditure budget is far less than 6 trillion naira, does not augur well for development. And you cannot isolate welfare of the people from actual developmental project embarked by an administration. The other subsidy is subsidy of the naira, by which you have different windows for foreign exchange, whereby some people even get access to dollars for 410, and just arbitrage and sell it, for 700, and Nigeria has to be using its hard-earned foreign exchange to, soar up, the naira. I think with the removal of the two, subsidies, there will be enough money for the government to engage in meaningful social infrastructure, capital, project, and of course, ensure that activities tending towards productivity are invested in by the Nigerian government. And in this regard, you need necessary synergy and good working relationship between the executive and legislative arm. It's not by throwing brickbats. It's not by shouting on top of your voice. And of course, it's not possible again to throw chairs at the chambers.
I must congratulate you people for that. I'm not saying that.
You can't be possible. No, the chairs are already tied down.
Yeah,
But in any event, attitude has also changed too.
Senator, talking about strengthening our democracy, you speak a lot about synergy, and I do agree with you, because even in the United States, it's hard for them to get bipartisan agreement, but they still work around it. We are privileged in Nigeria, where the executive and the legislative arm now has a majority. However, while the National Assembly works towards synergy, we have seen a total disregard of the National Assembly by some members of the executive, especially in the last 4 years. We've had times where Comptroller General of Customs was invited, and he will choose how he wants to come, irrespective of how he has been invited. We've also seen sometimes the EFCC boss or even the CBN governor, where there are key issues affecting the economy, and the National Assembly invites them and they choose not to come. Do you think our legislative arm should be strengthened a little more to enforce some decisions in cases where there's a disregard of the legislative arm by the executive?
I think we need to probe the question. One is there's a difference between, the law and also imbibing the spirit, of the law. There are enough legislations to ensure that our people answer to the summon of the National Assembly. In fact, it's a constitutional issue that anybody that is in charge of government expenditure can be investigated by the Assembly for purpose of detecting inefficiency and, of course, exposing corruption. But I think they are more political than issue of law. When you have, when you look at the body language of the formal administration, particularly at the presidency, and you see the way and manner by which they have seem to say that whatever they do, they will get the backing of them. Then when you talk about National Assembly, being strengthened, yes, we have summons, but the question is that we don't have our own police to implement the summon. And there's a poet, an Arabic poet. He said that when water is when anything is dirty, you use water to clean it. But when water itself is dirty, what are you going to clean it? So when you are going to execute a summon against the Inspector General of Police, for instance, who is going to be the police that will go there? You also saw one interplay between the SSS and the military in respect to the suspended CBN governor, when the SSS needed to investigate him and the military provided backing up for him. So I think with the new president, who understands that systems need to work, and you can see the promptitude by which President Bola Ahmed Tinubu intervened when the DSS invaded one of the other security agencies and immediately gave them a quittal. So what we need is not so much of law. We need political will. We need to make our institutions to work the way to work. No matter what law you do, if implementation is not within your profits, there's nothing really you can do about it. So most of those instances that were what would I call collusion between the office of the president and some of those executive agencies. So we want to see a situation whereby the new president will not toe that line. No matter what it is, being fidel to our political institutions is as good as having implementable legislations.
Okay.
So, Honorable, before we go, what strategies can this 10th National Assembly employ to, ensure transparency and accountability for the people?
I think such measures have already been put in place, which is the normal live sessions that people watch every time. And people have always been following the live sessions, and that's the only thing that can happen. He has said a lot about the synergy between the executive and the legislature, which is the most important thing, and making it open to the people, making people understand why it has to happen, why there has to be this synergy. There's nothing like rubber stamp. you've seen we are rubber stamp, but can you also call the executive rubber stamp? Because we are the ones that mostly take bills to them for ascension. And this is the first time we're having a president and a vice president who are part of the legislation. So they understand the workings of the legislation and they understand why they need to carry us along and why they need to pull us along. So that all we can do is just make sure that all our proceedings, people are carried along. People need to understand why everything has to happen in synergy with the executive.
What's your parting comments to your constituents?
I have two constituents, which is the youth constituent and my constituent Ogumosho. My constituent Ogumosho is that I promise them to always be there for them and give them quality representation and make sure that their needs and what they send me to do will be done. And also the youth to please let us give this government an opportunity. You can see that they've kicked off very well. So let us give them an opportunity to show what they can do for us. And let us also support all the youths in power today, both in the legislature and the executive. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Senator, your final words.
Okay, I must also commiserate with that family for the death of the son of the family. I happen to be one of the earliest caller. Here when he died is somebody that is a trailblazer. I remember when we were in the university that time when Repower bought for the first time we have 24-hour station. Yes. Yesterday I was also at a mosque, Abibulai Mosque, and even though he was not a Muslim, many of the contributions he had made to the Islamic community was highlighted, and special prayers was also offered for him. That's also tally with what I said before. Don't let anybody use religion, ethnicity, or tribal affiliations to disintegrate us in Nigeria. What matters is the humanism in us, and I want to urge all of us to give necessary support to the present administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We have each sacrifice to make. For you to be able, to make omelette, you need to break, egg. There will be a lot of sacrifices, and of course, he has promised that those sacrifices will be rewarded by massive investment in infrastructure and social investment to better the life of our people.
Senator, thank you very much. Honorable, we will be having you back on the show as time goes on. And do continue to do your job and keep your mandate, but we will hold you accountable to all you have said and done. There you have it. That's the much we can take on today's episode of The Weekend Show. You can watch this episode on YouTube, Weekend Show NG. You can also follow us on social media at Weekend Show NG on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can follow me at Andy Madaki on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can follow Didi
at Didi_ on Instagram and Twitter.
Like they have all said, we do owe ourselves the responsibility to ensure that Nigeria works from every level. And on this show, we will continue to state that besides looking at the federal government, you must also hold your state governors and representatives within the state accountable, because they also have a duty to serve you. Do have a blessed weekend and see you next week.